business. They said it was two people that were feminine when you look at them outwardly, but in that business office and in those meetings, they were gangsters, and that was Prince and Michael Jackson.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have back with us Gregory Moore. Greg has been lighting up this YouTube channel with his awesome commentary on the current state of entertainment and audio-visual gear. Greg is a professional videographer and has years and years of experience. So, Greg, thank you for coming back today. One thing that Greg said was, Kev, when we do the next interview, do not tell me what we are going to talk about. Put me on the spot and let's see where the conversation goes. So, Greg, I honored your wishes. I think this is going to be a very interesting topic, and I really hope that we're able to get a really good conversation out of this and give value to our viewers.
All right, yeah. I don't know what we talking about, so I
How
want
you
to just
feeling today? Before we get started, how you feeling?
feel good. I got me some limonada, my favorite drink, lemonade. Well, not lemonade, limeade. It's way better.
Limeade is good. I do remember you put me on the limeade years ago. I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to jump into what we're talking about today.
Yeah, well, leaked Michael Jackson biopic script is reportedly aggressive in its pursuit to make Michael look innocent of child abuse.
Man,
Okay.
it's getting heavy.
If you're gonna make something that's gonna make profit from Michael Jackson's family,
Right.
why would you make something that defames him? If it's gonna be
Great.
profitable for you personally, maybe gonna make something to defame him. But
Right.
why would somebody who's on that's a friend of the family that has the rights to it? Why would you even be
Right.
allowed to do something that has potential defamation of character in it?
Right.
If his family doesn't believe that in him, then
Right.
that tells you something. It's like P Diddy. P Diddy had the thing come out, and now everybody's jumping on him now that the footage is out. And I'm not gonna say specifically what's going on with that, but a lot of people around him are like, oh yeah, he did this, he did that, he was like this, he was like that. But when it comes to Michael, a lot of people are like, we didn't get that vibe from Michael. Except for the people that accused him. There was the only people, but with Diddy, everybody says we kind of got this vibe or that vibe. We knew that. It's just like people saying Kanye West is kind of crazy.
Right.
Everybody says he's kind of crazy. Even Kanye knows that. So it's like the
Everybody can't be
allegation,
lying.
right? Everybody can be like, he's kind of crazy. So it's okay. We understand. He accepts. Okay, this is what's going on. Even his best, closest friend. If you've seen the Yeezy Netflix, they show him when he starts to kind of lose it because he's taking medication and stuff.
For his bipolar disorder. Right.
Yeah, it's triggering it. So it's just one of those things where with people with Michael, kids are like, no, Michael was the nicest guy. Even kids that said that a while back, that they did that, they said they lied and he never touched them, and they came back and said on record that he never touched them. So a lot of the allegations are just, I think it's just something that, what I mean, they're gonna look for anything.
Right. Man, you hit the nail on the head, man. I wanted to get into this article a little bit more. So, this was written by Joe Price from Complex.com. He writes, a leaked version of the script for the upcoming Michael Jackson biopic, Michael, is set to tackle the child abuse allegations head on and paint the pop star as innocent. According to a report from Matthew Baloney of Puck, an iteration of the screenplay read by the reporter shows that the movie digs into the accusations that MJ sexually abused children at his Neverland Ranch. The news is all the more surprising considering Jackson's estate is directly involved with the Anton Fuqua directed biopic, which stars the late pop star's nephew, Jafar Jackson, in his acting debut. However, the context in which the topic is tackled appears to want to convince viewers that he's innocent. Quote, if the script as written ends up on screen, which is a big caveat here because words and scenes are often changed during shooting, and not everything goes in the final cut, this will be super controversial, wrote Baloney. It not only engages, it wants very much to convince you that Michael is innocent. So, Greg, going back to your point, what you just said, why on God's green earth would anybody associated with the Jackson estate who is in partnership now with Lionsgate to make this blockbuster, monumental, what is probably going to be the highest grossing biopic of all time, why would I put my money behind something that
Makes him a child.
intentionally demonizes the person that the whole
And then
extent is for?
that's like taking Luke Skywalker and making Luke Skywalker go kill kids in the village. Why would you do that when Luke Skywalker brand makes money here, on this end, on that end, on the toys, and like you taught me on the toys? It doesn't make any sense. So it's one of those things where you want to make a movie that's profitable. And profit is not always direct profit. There's direct profit from the actual entity or
Right.
digital item, and then there's indirect profit that you're going to get from the things around the item. Music, other documentaries, other biopics are going to be playing on TV now, more
Right.
music, all
There
the things
is a
around.
right. There is a cottage industry around Michael Jackson. Michael Joseph Jackson is an industry. He is an economy. Just
Wait, he
like
wasn't. His middle name was Joseph,
yes, after his daddy.
so his name was MJJ.
Yes.
That's funny.
Look, this is one of the blackest people you go and meet, bro. I don't know how people playing with Mike. This
Michael
is a black
Johnson.
man from Gary,
Yes.
Indiana. Okay,
Michael
so
Joe.
Michael Joe Jackson, man. Don't hey you got hey Michael J. Jackson. Please say the J. Okay.
Please say the J.
Look, man. One of my first questions is, given the aggressive approach, according to this article, of the leaked screenplay to portray Michael Jackson as innocent, which I believe, I'm putting on record, I believe Michael Jackson is innocent. How do you think this will affect the film's reception in Hollywood and among the general public, especially considering the ongoing debate about his legacy?
Okay, I have a direct answer for you, and this is very easy. OJ, the day he died, three different people said, he did it right. I'm like, I've never heard a black man say he did it until today when he died. So people believed he did it, just didn't talk about it because he was still here and it would defame his character if he didn't. When he dies, oh man, he probably did it. Right? When Michael Jackson died, we hear more and more of, we don't think he did it. Don't think he did it. Don't think he did it. You don't hear that in his family. You don't hear that from his family. You don't hear that from the people that knew him. There's no reason for them to hold back. He's dead.
Greg, I kudos to you for saying that. That makes a lot of sense. I gotta look into the camera for this one. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the Federal Bureau of Investigations is maybe the most thorough investigative agency on the planet. I'm talking about if you look at MI6 in England, if you look at the CIA, if you look at the Food and Health Administration, I don't care what organization you put the FBI up against. The Federal Bureau of Investigations may, in fact, be the most thorough investigative bureau on the face of the planet. They investigated Michael Jackson and they found no wrongdoings.
Right.
If the FBI comes back and says there was no evidence of any of this, I'm going to believe the FBI. I'm totally going to believe the FBI, which leads me to my next question. If this screenplay was very close to the actual screenplay that is in production, do you foresee any backlash from the alleged victims or their supporters once this movie comes out?
You got to remember this too. Some kids don't remember everything, so their parents will say, "Well, did this happen to you?" And the kids will say, "Yeah, and they'll say, "Oh, that did happen. That did happen." And then when they do that, the kid goes, and then in the kid's memory, such happened, and it never happened. Never happened. So people do that with kids. I've had things with me where I'll have one parent say, "This happened like this," and then I'll have my grandparent say, "This happened like this," and I have another parent say, "I don't remember. I wasn't there." And then later on, you go back and you say, "Well, didn't da 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 da," and then they'll say, "No, it didn't happen like that. It happened like this." And so you're like, "Wait, this whole time in my mind, my mom's been telling me that it happened like this." Like, no, she wasn't there. This is what happened. And so I think it happened like that, and it's just a perpetuation of what I'm being told. It's not necessarily true. So
Wow.
kids are extremely vulnerable to interpretation. And I but kids know when something's wrong and something's off. They're gonna say something that something's off. The kids is like, I don't know what that was, but I think, you know. So I just think that Michael Jackson was like the main thing. I was like, whoa, as a kid, I was just like, me and you both are talking about him because as kids we were like, whoa, what is that? That's so cool, you know. And I don't think he was recruiting, you know, I don't think he was grooming kids. I think that was just his energy. That's just me personally. I mean, it could be whatever they say about him, allegedly, you know.
Right, we weren't there. We don't know. But the story just doesn't add up.
I just don't. I don't see him doing something like that. I don't think if you're that famous, like R. Kelly tying girls up and all that stuff. The first time, oh yeah, he did that. The second time, they were just calling back to the first time. Because the second time, he's like, why would I do something that stupid when I already been, I would never do that. And even one of the girls got mad at the other girl and was like, you weren't so evil. You know he didn't do none of that stuff. And she was like, I'm laughing to the bank. And it's like, you know, it is what it is. And that's what people do, you know. And R. Kelly didn't go to jail till he didn't have no more money. They said he couldn't pay court fees. And his next check, he got $100,000 or a $300,000 check from his royalties the next month, and then he paid his whatever it was, his last little fees. Like he went down literally when he had no more money to fight. You know, they probably got documentaries they do on people. Like say there was a documentary on Diddy that they did 10 years ago, and they say, Diddy, we're gonna release this. Do you want to buy? You want to be the first buyer? He say, yeah. Or he'll secretly buy it for 10 million and then never release it. It's just like music people. Sometimes they'll go find an artist and then sign the artist and then never use that artist because they saw that artist might have been great, so they don't want to compete with them. So they sign him and keep him low. It's one of those things. Like I think with Michael, he has it's very interesting because smear campaigns, I think, are very real, you know, and I think that
And
they
why
don't
would someone want to smear Michael Jackson's campaign? We know he bought the
because
Beatles catalog. We know he owned half of Sony
they
Music's
can get it
publishing.
for cheap.
We
Not
know
just
that
get it for cheap.
his company ATV pretty much owned half of the entire music industry in North America and a lot of parts of the world. Michael Jackson was actually a very shrewd businessman.
Yeah, but you got to remember the thing about Michael Jackson is there was so much that Michael Jackson did alone and didn't tell anybody.
Like
And
as
stuff
in the
with
things he did to help other people, like buying people's
good or
royalties that
bad.
are
No, that's
masters.
if we could consider it good or bad in business. They said it was two people that were feminine when you look at them outwardly. But in that business office and in those meetings, they were gangsters. And that was Prince and Michael Jackson. They said that they were more gangster than anyone in meetings and in business. But how they put themselves out in their image, you would think that they would be that tough in
Well,
business.
one of the theories that I once heard on a podcast was by Tariq Nasheed. He said something that I'll never forget. He said, Prince and Michael Jackson, they transitioned right out of the civil rights era in their youth into the 70s. And in order for them to be accepted into popular culture, mainstream culture, they had to personify a feminine nature so they weren't deemed as
As a
threats.
black man. Tyler Perry made $1 billion as a black woman. And then he did roles as a man. Then he did put more masculine things into what he was doing. So you were like, people were like, well, how did he make it? Well, Black America really didn't see him as a man until, I don't know, was it Alex Cross and Ninja Turtles? He did a couple of roles. And they did Why Did I Get Married? But he just didn't present himself as a man to the public. Now, in the business, in the behind closed doors, he was a man in those meetings. But how he presented himself to the public, where he was able to get the dollars back and get the fans, there was a feminine thing to that. There is like Kendrick Lamar said, there is the feminization of the black man, and it's very real, you know. And they feminize him, the image of the black man as a whole, and they always try to do that because there's hegemony. And when you always take the strongest man and you cut his, you and you
Castrate.
feminize him, yeah, you feminize him or lynch him, you make an example for the others and for the women and all of that. So then when you get masculinity, it's usually toxic masculinity, or you get some people who do it well. You get Dave Chappelle, who give you, you know, positive masculine frame. Barack Obama, you know, Keegan, Michael Keegan. Even though they do a lot of feminization things, but I think outside of Comedy Central, they're doing 10 times. Like they're doing work. You know what I mean? That makes a difference in the black community, which is very cool. But I understand that they have to do one to do the other, or whatever. But anytime there's an ability to feminize the black man, they're going to do it, and they don't. And it's not necessarily racist. The reason it is not necessarily racist is just because if you are an Asian man or a Spanish man or an Indian man or a white man, you just don't want the other man to get your girl, so you're going to feminize him. It's not everything that they do
How
to
is
the
that
African.
not racist?
Hegemony is not about necessarily about race. Sometimes it's just about dominance. And when I talk about hegemony, for people who don't know, just talking about the most masculine, powerful image of a man to the public of that particular type. So it just not necessarily race. It could just be a, whatever, an army guy, or, you know, it's just the most powerful man in that position. What does he look like? When you see him, when you see a GI Joe as a kid, you think that's the most powerful. Wow, he looks strong. And then when you see The Rock, you're like, oh, that's him. That he looks like GI Joe. Isn't The Rock and GI Joe one of them? I don't know. Maybe not.
He is, yeah. Like
He
yeah,
literally,
retaliation or something.
yeah. So
Annihilation. Something.
that's literally how it works. In your mind, as a kid, you see a Barbie and you see a GI Joe. And the girls are seeing this Barbie, and the guys are
Yeah,
seeing
no
this GI Joe,
retaliation. That's right.
and that's the pinnacle. And we don't realize it psychologically, but that's the pinnacle. And so when you get into the mass communications of a thing, right? When you get into the branding of a thing, or how you spinning something in the news, oh, that's the strongest man. You know what I mean? They kick it down, and then it gives the other men of whatever race, yep, it gives the other men of the other race, or not even race, but just other men, um, a competitive edge, because then the women see that him as more masculine. I mean, and that is so where you gotta realize you're putting it in the grown woman's mind. Like my grandmother loves Clint Eastwood. I don't think she's ever dated a guy outside her race, but she's like, I love me some Clint Eastwood because that's the strongest male in her mind, because that's who she sees on TV. That's the strongest man she can imagine. You got to understand, she sees him every day on Westerns, day in, day out for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. You're talking about something that's being imprinted, programmed into us, like the Matrix. And when you take that and you're also doing it to a little girl who's 2 year old or 5 years old, and she sees that, she said, I like Clint Eastwood. See what I'm saying?
Well, let
So,
me ask you this. You know, Clint Eastwood, even in his well into his 90s, is still alive and kicking. Michael Jackson has been dead for over a decade now. But young people, I'm talking about my daughter, who's under the age of 10, loves him.
right.
Why was Michael Jackson so magical, magnetic? Why does every generation of young people always find his music and enjoy it?
Well, for one, he did his music in the frequency of 432, which is what it used to be until they changed it. I believe they changed it to 442 hertz.
Can you explain this to us?
So 432, like I think it's like the flower of life or something like that. You ever seen that, like the basic building block of humanity, right? I think that if you were to put 432 and you put salt or sand on a speaker and you played that frequency, it would create that flower, if I'm not mistaken, on the top of the speaker. Like it's a frequency of harmony. So when people change it a little bit, it's not as harmonious. So because that's a frequency of harmony, it's a natural frequency that we're supposed to be vibrating to as people, as humanity, animals, everything. When you put that out, people would cry. Remember, people would pass out. It would be an experience when they went to his um, concerts. And then the words he was saying. So it was more to it. He was sending a personal energy out too from him. He was sending this loving energy out, trying to heal the world. But the stuff is specific. You get into music, and the stuff is specific. You can have a music where you're playing certain tones that create certain emotions. Just like Pharrell says, you play these keys and it's more sad. You play these keys and it's more happy. Like there is a science to that. And Michael Jackson was aware of how to tap into it, and that's what he was doing. And he did it to heal. And you can do it for the opposite effect. That's not what he did. So when kids see it and hear it, the craziest thing is it's like the low end theory, right? You want to tap into that basic part of the human element. That's what it's about. That's why Waka Flocka was so popular. All the kids could get into it. It was so simple. It was simple on a frequency level. So Michael Jackson knew what he was doing, and and now, but he even though he knew that on the most basic levels, he did stuff that was fun. He put cartoons in it. He did creative stuff where there was just this magic and wonder. He was like George Lucas, just making this light and magic just everywhere. It was just like you remember when he turned into a car in Moonwalker, and it's like, then he would come out. He's in his all white suit with a hat, and it's like, what did I just see? Like it would just as a kid, it just blows your mind. And then when you go back as an adult and look at it, you're like, oh, that was still pretty cool. That was really cool that he did that for us. Like you got to think, man. The best thing you can do is to do stuff for the kids because the kids are going to be fans for life. But like the Bible says, the heart of a child will lead them. So you get somebody like Michael Jackson. Not only was he a kid, and so as he grew up, he had all those fans. When he became an adult, he catered to kids. He catered to the imagination of kids. A childlike imagination kept his fan base for life, and it just regenerates itself, like Star Wars. When a kid first sees Luke Skywalker, he's like, "Wow, voice." When a kid first sees Moonwalker, they're like, "Who's Michael? Who's that?" I saw Thriller, and it didn't scare me. I knew. I was like, it's scary, but it doesn't scare me. Like I know this is something really cool that is probably it's not. It looks better than everything else. But it wasn't Blue's Clues where they're teaching you stuff. It was just that level of imagination. I remember watching Bad with all the leather and man, everything I saw with Michael Jackson. You gotta remember, back then we had cable. All you watching is Michael Jackson. What you mean? It wasn't nothing else on. I could go through every channel, and it didn't matter what it was. If it was Michael, I knew it would be entertaining as a kid. I didn't care if it was his movie. I didn't care if it was a music video. I didn't care if it was music. I didn't care if it was the documentaries, the biopics, the TV show. I didn't care what it was. If I saw it was Michael, I knew I can watch this and I can imagine. The Wiz, everything he touched was like a movie. It was the best quality of whatever else you watched. But then when you see the concerts, you see everybody passing out and going crazy. It's like he knew at the base level, I'm going to put out a healing energy and I'm going to imagine like a child. And those two things, plus vibing with the music, it's a gumbo for just humanity.
It's a wrap.
Humanity gumbo, yeah.
Well, Greg, can't thank you enough for stopping by today. You gave us so much great insight, all stemming from this article claiming that the Michael Jackson movie might possibly paint him as innocent. And the funny thing about it is, why wanted it and why shouldn't it? Like, it's almost
OJ's
article about.
Yeah, OJ's Netflix docudramas made him look innocent. It was OJ because what else is Michael Jackson's estate gonna clear? You
Right.
think they're gonna clear you doing that? They're no. If you're gonna talk about another thing is another thing is okay. Say somebody. Let's take it out of Michael Jackson. Let's make up a fictional character. Let's say uh, Little Jonah, right? Little Jonah. He was an artist and he made all these great songs, pop R&B songs, until he was 50 years old, died at 50. Now, when he was 25, he messed up and he got in a domestic dispute with a girl, and they went back and forth and they got into a fight, almost like P Diddy, right? And then fast forward, he asked her to forgive him, she forgave him, da da da. He was actually made square with her, got married again, or they remarried and forgave each other, boom, boom, at 35. And when he was a kid, when they got a little older, they divorced. He married someone else, stayed with them from 40 to 50. Had a bunch of kids, treated people right, apologized for stuff. He admitted that he did whatever it was. Now he's dead, and somebody goes in and they say, "Oh, we got video of this guy fighting his wife and when he was 25, right?" When he made the music, he did not make the music with that intent for that mistake that he had on that night. The music is not. If he was making healing music or good music or whatever, R. Kelly is very hard to separate R. Kelly from his brand because everything was very perverted. So that's why with R. Kelly, it's not the same. With Michael Jackson, it appeals to kids, but it is appealing to imagination, really. And with this Little Jonah guy, say he came, he said, "No, I'm sorry, I did do that. I apologize for that." Then he made more music. That should not disqualify his art because people make mistakes. Now, I'm not saying Michael Jackson, you're talking about child abuse. What type of child abuse are they talking about? What are they talking about? Because they would never let somebody off the hook for someone who does things that hurts children, right? It doesn't, you know. But all I'm saying is, at least be try to the art and the person is it's not the same. It's not the same, and I think that what lawyers do and what the court system does is they try to lump it, and they lump it because who is pressing to push that? Who wants that? And then you got to think if it has no value, okay, it has no value now. So who's defaming it? Is it just everybody wants something from it? I don't see people coming after Chuck E. Cheese and going, "Oh, kids choke on pizza at Chuck E. Cheese at least 5 times a year." It's normal. There's kids there. They choke on pizza. You know what I mean? It's normal. Chuck E. Cheese is not feeding kids food to hurt them. It's a bunch of kids at Neverland. Somebody's parents are gonna say, "Hey, you know what? I think something happened." So that's Michael's fault for constantly having kids over there without their parents. That's Michael's fault. I hope that he never did anything like that. I really do. But it was bound to be accusations if you always got kids around. That's Michael. That was stupid. That was dumb. Regardless of how great your art is, if you're making dumb human decisions, now you have to pay for it. Your family has to pay for it. Whatever it is, it's just like Charlie Sheen with a lot of risky things that he did. When it comes to the public, you got to answer for it now. There's no way around that. It's just like Diddy. You are already answering for it, but when that video came out, you got to answer for it. And you saying where Diddy messed up is him saying, "I'm so sorry." Now, when she sued you the first time, you should have paid and said, "Listen, I had a lot of problems. I had a lot of issues, a lot of things that I want to apologize to Cassie publicly, and I want to let her know I should have done that differently. And I apologize to her and her family, and I hope that we can come to an agreement where, because I'm healing, I'm really trying to change. I'm sorry for my damage that I did to you, and I hope you can heal." And did that, even if that would have came out, Cassie would have been like, "Yeah, but Diddy ain't like that no more." But that's not the energy. The energy is she's like, yeah, it came out, and he don't want nobody to know. That's the real energy behind it. So again, I just think with Mike, with those kids coming out later and saying, no, that didn't happen. The energy behind it is, I don't think that's what Mike was ever trying to do, but I think that the situation presented itself where these people was going to try to get money out of him. Something was going to go wrong with kids around all the time. So
Man,
I just think that they're not going to give anybody the rights to just do defamation of character on their
right,
watch. No, no, no.
right.